Hey, hey, I'm going to give it probably until 2:05 to start. And just to see if anybody else is joining us last minute, if you wouldn't mind either unmuting at your major and what year you are, just so I can know a little bit about your background and what advice might best help you.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of like a transition year. I actually graduated last spring, but I'm kind of more in the transition of going into medical school, so I'm kind of doing a DIY post-bac. Um, so yeah, I would guess I kind of consider myself kind of like a fifth year. So I guess with more of a biology focus now. So, but I did get my degree in nutrition.
Hey, I'm so sorry. Are you there?
Yeah, could you not hear me?
Yes, my Wi-Fi dropped. It's been chaotic. Could you
Oh,
repeat
no
that
worries.
last part again? I heard you say your DIY post-bac, and that's kind of what you're working on right now.
Yeah, I would just say I'm probably like around a year five right now because I just took off last semester, but I've been going back to school now, and then I've been kind of off and on the MCAT. I've taken it twice now, but so this will be my third time. So, but I was just kind of hopping in here to see if you had any more advice for it.
Okay, cool. So this would be your third time this year taking it?
Not this year, just third time taking it.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty then, that's good to know. I'll try and keep that in mind as I go through the presentation. And then, like I said, we'll get started around 2:05.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Also, if my Wi-Fi cuts out in the middle of this, I am so sorry. I was using campus Wi-Fi. It's not working. I'm on my hotspot, but it also isn't working. It's an interesting day.
Yeah.
We're gonna roll with it, and I'll try my best to give you some good advice on MCAT prep. Anyways, I'm gonna share my screen. Also, this meeting is being recorded. The most we're gonna do with it is upload it on the pre-med website, but that's just to give you a heads up. And if we do upload it, we'll cut out the parts that are like this, and we'll just stick to me presenting, and we'll cut off any parts where you ask questions at the end. So you won't necessarily be seen in any of it.
Cool.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. and get started. Okay. So just a little bit about me first. So I am an intern working with Dr. Hancock's on their kind of pre-med programming this semester. We've been doing a lot of work to try and kind of revamp that system, make it more accessible for students, to kind of bridge the gap between students and advisors and help Dr. Ivy and Dr. Moore, because they're just so overworked all the time. So that's how I've come to this position, and I've already taken the MCAT successfully. I'll be applying to medical school this spring, and yeah, that's kind of why I am qualified to be here talking to you today. I know that can be kind of weird sometimes, but I am a senior psychology student at the U of A. So I'm just going to go with a quick overview of the MCAT. This is going to be super brief, since you mentioned that you've already taken it, so you'll be pretty familiar with this. But there are 4 sections on the MCAT: Chem Phys, Critical Analysis and Reasoning, Biology and Biochemistry, and then Psych and Sociology. And between each of those sections, you get 2 10-minute breaks and 1 30-minute break between cars and biology. So Chem, 10-minute break; cars, 30-minute break; biology, 10-minute break; psychology, done. You have 95 minutes for each of the 3 passage, or for Chem, Phys, biology, and psychology. And each of those will have 59 discrete and passage-based questions. So usually what that looks like is there'll be a block of text, and then there will be 3 discrete questions. And then the cars section is a little different because it's exclusively passage-based, and you will have 90 minutes to complete 53 passage-based questions for that one. So it's just a little around 1.5 minutes for each question if you're doing that math. So it is time is definitely of the essence, since you have to consider that you'll be reading pretty dense passages, synthesizing information, and using all of that to answer questions. So keep all of that in mind whenever you're thinking about those time constraints. And then I'm sure you're familiar with this as well, but you don't get penalized for guessing. Back in 2015, they did a major overhaul of the MCAT structure to try to make it more representative of how students are actually performing in their testing and their pre-medical preparations. And one of the things they eliminated was the guessing penalty. So it's to your advantage to answer as many questions as possible, even if that means you're just filling in C for the last 10 questions. Also, there is an afternoon session available. I don't know if you've come across that in the times you scheduled your MCAT, but there are a few select days and a few select locations that offer afternoon sessions every year. You can see those listed whenever you're looking at the full calendar of MCAT availability. And it does start at 3 p.m. So you have to consider you'll be in the testing room until probably around 10 or 11 if you take the full time. But if you're a night owl like me, that could be something that you are interested in. I know I was pretty upset whenever I left my 7 a.m. test and saw people coming in to sit down for their 3 p.m. test, because it meant I could have woken up later and had a leisurely day rather than slamming a granola bar down my throat and racing to the testing center. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then the scoring, each section gets a subscale score between 118 and 132, which sums between 472 and 528 total. And then it will take about 4 to 5 weeks to get your score back. So make sure that you're factoring that in whenever you are planning when to take your test and when you're going to apply. All right, so now into the 10 steps for MCAT success. Number 1, take university coursework to prepare you and actually pay attention in class. So whether this looks like taking notes and then making flashcards to review what you've learned after you've already graduated the class, or applying what you've learned to the real world through your research lab or through articles that you continue to read after you have left certain classes. It's really important that you're keeping this knowledge fresh in your mind, because it's going to take more effort off of the back end whenever you're not having to dig as deep into content review. If you've been doing that all along, it can be really beneficial. And then you're going to want to meet with your advisor to be sure that you're on track, that you have met all of the requirements. I have a friend who was accepted into Texas medical school, and then they emailed her and said, hey, you haven't taken this English 101 course that you need to take. And she had to go through the rigmarole of taking that course in the summer, which could have been avoided had maybe she met with her advisor a couple more times and they noticed that that kind of conflict was occurring. So the next step, you're going to take a practice test, which is going to help you set your baseline, help you direct the future of your studying. AMC offers a free sample test that you can take. It doesn't get scored, but you can find lots of different tools online that will help you figure out what your scaled score might be, kind of give you a projection based on the number of questions that you missed. And a lot of other test-based services do similar things. So I know Blueprint offers one full free test and half of a diagnostic style test. I believe that Kaplan probably does something similar, Princeton Review. You can find a couple free ones, especially in this beginning phase when you're not really sure what you want to do or what might be most beneficial for you. It can be nice to not have to financially commit to something before you take your test. And then don't freak out about your score. It's very important that you understand that you're just beginning. So you're going to get something that maybe, or that definitely is not going to be where you ultimately want to be because you're just now starting. This is the beginning of your MCAT journey. And as cheesy as that sounds, it's important to understand that you have been doing the right prep work, but the MCAT's a totally different beast. It makes you think about things in a different way, and they don't design this test to be friendly to the test takers. So you're going to have to put effort into getting that score that you're looking for. So then you're going to take into account all that information that you just learned from your baseline and set your goal. So this is another tricky part because you want to take it easy, but you also want to push yourself. I would say check around at what your dream schools are and use that to kind of guide you. A good idea is to keep your target schools within 2 points or so of your score. So I know that the average at UAMS is like 507. It'd be best if you could be 2 points above that. Ideally 509, 510 would be awesome. If you're wanting to get into Stanford, you're going to need to get a 524 because their average is 522. So just kind of keeping those things in mind whenever you're looking at your baseline score and setting your goals. Then you're going to choose a test date. So the best way I can recommend doing this is deciding how much time you have to commit to studying for the MCAT right now. So if you are going to take the MCAT at the end of August before school starts and you're going to take from June to August, then you probably aren't going to need like if you took all that study time end of May to mid-July, it's probably not going to be beneficial to you to do much longer than that since you're studying for the MCAT full time. Whereas somebody who is working a full-time job or going to school is going to want to spread that out over 4 months or 6 months. You just want to decide how realistically you can split up this 300 hours, which is kind of the gold standard you'll find if you look online, 300 to 400 hours. So for a 3-month study schedule, let's say that's what you chose, you would do around 20 hours a week, which can sound like a lot because it is a part-time job when you think about it like that. So you should take into consideration your other responsibilities, but not give yourself so much time that you run out or burn out or run out of materials. So set that time. And a really nice thing you can do for yourself in the beginning is divide out the number of resources you have over the amount of time you think you're going to study. And if you're doing like 20 questions a week, you probably are giving yourself way too much time to study compared to the amount of materials that you have. But if you're planning to do 500 questions a week, then you're probably giving yourself not enough time. So it's a difficult balance to strike, but it is probably one of the most important things that you can consider. When I was first taking the MCAT, I had an advisor tell me to move my score up, and I am beyond thankful that I did that because I did not need to be studying for the entire month of July. I moved my date up to the end of June, and I would have been exhausted had I continued to do that in July. The next thing you're going to do is purchase your materials. And that can be another really daunting task just because there's so much out there, so much available. You are going to want to purchase something for content review and something for your actual review material portion. So content review refers to the time period that you're just going over the nitty-gritty, like biochemicals and biochemical functions, psych terms, all of that good stuff. Most people prefer to use Kaplan for that just because they offer those really nice books and they're well trusted. They've been doing this for a long time, so it's really popular, and it's also really easy to find those as hand-me-downs or used books, so you can get it a little cheaper. I know that we have quite a few of those on campus. as resources in the library, in the physics library, and then in the Honors College Futures Hub, there is a number of different prep materials as well. You're also going to want to buy the AAMC test bank and any practice tests you can find through AAMC. It's beyond important to use all of the AAMC materials available because that's the makers of the test. Then Blueprint, UWorld, all of those items can just be icing. I would recommend buying at least one of them because you're going to want to have that sheer volume of questions available to you. But also finances are hard, so don't be afraid to be really choosy and do a lot of research before you pick one. And then my recommendation is to not purchase pricey coaching programs. At the end of the day, they're really not worth it. However, I do kind of change that advice if it's your second or third time taking the MCAT. Buying those pricier coaching programs can really give you that extra push that you need. If you need just an outside perspective to tell you what hasn't been going right, if you're just really at the end of your rope and you're not exactly sure what you need to change, then it might be time to look into one of those pricier coaching programs. Other than that, I really don't recommend it. Find a friend to tutor you. Ask your upperclassmen for advice. You really don't need to spend thousands of dollars on test prep materials for the MCAT. Okay, now that I'm off my soapbox about that, we talk about making your study schedule. So again, plan to use all the materials you've purchased, load content review at the beginning. So that is going to look like 1/3, the first third of your review time will be spent on content review. And then the last 2/3 will be spent on your actual materials, like doing question banks and taking practice tests every week. That's how that's going to look. And then you're going to plan to start taking a practice test a week about 8 weeks before your test date. And that is going to allow you to have taken at least 8 to 10 practice tests, because again, that is the best way you can possibly build up your endurance, learn to read the passages and learn what you're looking for, get familiar with the test structure. That's really the only way you can do that, is by taking those practice tests over and over and over again, which is exhausting, but so important again. And then planning to use all the study materials you've purchased, kind of like we talked about before, literally counting up the number of questions you have, counting up the number of chapters you want to read, counting up the number of flashcards you need to review, and dividing that out over the time that you have. Content review, like I said, not more than 1/3 of your study time, mostly at the beginning. So you're gonna front load with content, and then you can also supplement with content throughout. If you get into studying and you're like, wow, I never learned about the emotional models, you can definitely go back and review, watch a video, read a book about that good stuff. But also learn what areas you're weak in. So use that baseline score to say, wow, I'm really not so good at physics, and really dig deep into physics, but you're killing it at psych and sociology. So you can be a little bit more lax with that since you understand that pretty well. And then build a flashcard or study set as you go. That is beyond important, just because you are going to want to keep track of those concepts that you're a little unfamiliar with, so you can keep going back and checking up on them. It's going to be really helpful to you in the long run. And then keep in mind all of your free resources available. The Kaplan books at the library. Anki is going to be your best friend. I'm sure you're familiar with Anki. It's a flashcard system that allows you to it's based on time. So the time delay is decided for you based on how familiar you rank yourself with a concept or something like that. So instead of like Quizlet, where you can just flip through it over and over and over again until you like get one right, it makes you rehearse it in a timed manner. So it will even bring up cards from months ago, which is really helpful in building that long-term memory. And then Khan Academy, there's a gigantic list of videos and practice questions and practice sets on Khan Academy that are specifically tailored to the MCAT and are divided by subject and subsection. Absolutely check those out because they're beyond helpful. And then last point, I feel like I skipped something. Oh yes, absolutely, we skipped a lot of things. Okay, sorry about that. Practice exams and question banks. This is going to be the 2/3 that we talked about towards the end. You're going to take a practice test every week and simulate the real test environment as much as possible. This is so important. I can't emphasize it enough. Wake up at the time that you need to be waking up. Don't be like me and sleep in until 10 every day until the week of your test and then say, oh shoot, I need to sleep in until 10. Some people will even get as crazy about it as literally practicing what they're going to eat that day. So just trying to make sure that whatever you eat for breakfast is going to get you through till lunch, or that whatever you have packed for snacks is going to be enough for you, because nobody can take a good test on an empty stomach. Also, maybe wearing a mask if your testing center requires masks, or deciding what caffeinated beverage works best for you in the morning. If coffee makes you, have to use the restroom a little bit, not the ideal. So make sure that you simulate that environment as much as possible. And then take a full day to review each practice test. If you're taking a practice test and not reviewing it, you're wasting your time. And that's not something that we want to do when we're preparing for the MCAT. So take a full day, make a running list of questions that you've missed, and detail how you missed them and how you're not going to miss them in the future. And then add to your Anki deck. If it was a content-based mess up, note that, and then add something to your Anki deck to review later. If it was you misread the question, practice highlighting in the passage where you misread and what information could have helped you in the future. So just again, that rehearsal is so important in this time of your prep. Again, I'm gonna get on my soapbox, self-care. So preparing for the MCAT is a marathon and not a sprint. You are going to be eating, sleeping, drinking water, and planning in breaks with activities you enjoy, because you are a human being and you deserve that. And you're going to do so much better if you are allowing yourself the joys of just existing without making the MCAT your whole life. So whether that looks like setting your day, if let's say you did decide to do it over the summer, you wake up every day, start studying at 9 a.m. and then treat it like a job, work until lunch, take a lunch break, and then start studying again until 4 or 5 in the afternoon. That can be a really good way to make sure that your whole life isn't devoted to the MCAT, and that you're building in those good movie nights with friends, or going to trivia night, or reading a book whenever you are winding down before bed. It's important that you have something to look forward to so that you're not burning yourself out. And then test day, be proud of yourself. Remember how hard you've worked to get here, but also don't vary your routine, and don't study the day before the test. So if you have been waking up at 6 a.m. for the last 3 months, don't decide the week before your test that you're going to start waking up at 8, because that's not going to serve you in the end. If you have been working out every day leading up to the test, don't start skipping your workouts because you feel like you need to study more. It's going to be more beneficial for your body and your brain to have set habits than to break those habits in the days leading up to your MCAT. Your body and brain will be so stressed out to begin with. You don't want to add any stress like that by varying your routine. So that's what I suggest for that. And then don't study the day before the test. It's really important that you give your mind a break. I went out and sat by the pool with my friend and then watched a movie and made pasta for dinner. Something like that, that's going to take your mind off of your anxiety, because you're probably going to be pretty nervous, but also something that's going to hold you accountable, prevent you from studying. Anytime that I was like, I need to pull out my flashcards, my friends could say, Elizabeth, no, not necessary right now. You've worked hard enough, so we're gonna support you through this last day, these last 24 hours before you are done. And then plan something fun to do after your accomplishment. A road trip, or even something as small as a nice dinner with friends, or again, reading a book that you really like. Anything like that is going to help motivate you throughout the day that you're taking your test. Whenever you get really tired, you can think, okay, just 2 more questions and then I can go eat my cheese fries. Anything so small like that is going to do your self wonders when you remember that outside of the MCAT, there is life. So that, again, just my soapbox about taking care of yourself and how much the MCAT is a mental game as much as it is an academic kind of preparation game. So we're here to help. These are some people on campus that can assist you in your MCAT prep. Me, Elizabeth Laudermilk, and my colleague, Brooke Martin. She is another MCAT coach through the Honors College. And then Dr. Ivy and Dr. Mortensen are both pre-med advisors and know a lot about this stuff as well. So that is my little spiel. I hope that wasn't too redundant for you. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then stop the recording.